Hi YouTube. Today we've got an interesting test. I hope you'll find it interesting. I found it interesting. Anyhow, for years the old Radio Shack handheld CBs. I like the old handheld CBs. I like the new handheld CBs. I like handheld CBs. I like seeing what they can do, see what kind of range they can do, what kind of features they have. I enjoy looking them over and kind of playing with them a little bit, and I share that with my viewers. And for years, that the Radio Shack, they had those great big tall antennas, and of course everybody says, "Oh, that's why the Radio Shacks are so good." The new CBs, they all have a little rubber duck antenna, and the rubber duck antennas aren't great. They do some of my rubber duck antennas. I had 2 miles, but not very clear. You get the tall antenna. When you get a tall antenna, wow, it's clear. I've gone 4 miles. I try to go 4 miles. Some of them won't do it, but some of them will. But the rubber duck, forget it. I'm lucky to get 2 miles, and it's not very clear with the rubber duck. So the rubber duck is not the way to go. But I watched this YouTube channel, Max Public Land Hunting and Outdoors, and he figured out they have a tall 51-inch telescoping HYS, or this is a high shrieker. It's 2 different companies, I guess. They make the exact, I can't see the difference. It doesn't say any difference. But anyhow, they make a 51-inch telescoping antenna, and it's a BNC connector. So a lot of the newer radios have a BNC connector. So you can actually take the rubber duck off and put this on. Once you put this 51-inch tall antenna on, it does a fantastic job. I can get 4 miles. Depends on the conditions. Every day is different. I go out at nighttime when it's a little quieter on the conditions, and I can get 4 miles with this tall antenna. Sometimes I get 4 miles with the rubber duck too. But this tall antenna works great. But so are these tall antennas better than the old Radio Shacks? I don't know. I'd like to know. So what I'm going to do is we're going to try to find out today. I have a ton. I have a couple. I don't know. I have over 100 CBs, and I'm slowly testing them all and seeing what they do. Well, I notice the old Radio Shacks didn't perform as well as some of the new radios that had this 51-inch tall antenna. So I said, well, I wonder if this big tall antenna, this is actually taller than the old Radio Shack antennas. I wonder if it's this, or is it the new radios? The new radios have newer technology, so newer technology is going to work better. And the new radios are putting out some pretty good watts. You can get a couple of the new radios that are putting out the full 4 watts, or maybe even a little more. So I said, well, maybe the new radios are putting out more power than the old radios, or maybe the technology, or maybe it's this tall antenna. I wish there was a way to tell. But hey, I found out, I bought a 226 to test. So this is my 226 that I bought to test, and when I got it, I found out this has got that tall Radio Shack antenna, and it's a TNC, Thomas Nancy Charlie antenna. And what it does is the BNC connectors, the BNC tops, they have 2 little pegs that this goes on and locks on. This is a TNC. It actually screws on. So when you put this on, it's on tight as a drum, and it works really good. Well, I have also bought a President Randy. I like the President Randy. And I bought the President Randy. I had the rubber duck antenna. Well, as you know, I don't like the rubber duck antennas. So I wanted one of these great high shrieker antennas. So I looked, and you can buy a TNC connector. This is the TNC connector. You can actually buy a TNC connector for the President Randy. So I said, wow, hey, I now have a TNC old Radio Shack telescoping antenna, and I have a TNC connector 51-inch antenna. So I said, you know what I can do? I can take the same radio out and try both antennas, and I can see which antenna performs better. So that's what we're going to do tonight. If I line these up, together, now the Radio Shack had this coil. It's called a mid mounted coil. Anytime you can get the coil above your head, the antenna is going to work better. So right off the bat, this is in the middle. It's going to be up above your head. That's where you want it. You want to try to get all the antenna above you, as high up as you can get it. The HYS, or the high shrieker antenna, has that coil down the bottom. You can see how thick this is. You can actually see the wires wrapped around here to give it its length. This is very thin. I'm going to assume the wires in here are very thin. So I said, well, this old Radio Shack seems to be made a lot better. So if I go like that, all the way up, here's the top of the Radio Shack, and here's the top of the high shrieker. It's 41 inches. A lot of the old Radio Shacks were 48, but this 226 that I have is 41 inches, and it seems the 41 inch actually seems to perform just as good as the old Radio Shack 48s. So now that I have two of them, I'm going to go out. I'm going to take my President Randy, and I'm going to take my 226. This is my latest acquisition. And I'm going to take both of those out. I'm going to try them with the Radio Shack antenna, both radios. Then I'm going to try both radios with the high shrieker antenna, and we'll see which one does better. If the high shrieker is better, we'll see if the high shrieker does a better job, or the Radio Shack. Now I've learned some other stuff in here. Now I'm also going to do. I'm going to try to leave this Radio Shack 226 at my house. I'm going to go set it out on the back of a little table, and I'm going to put the high shrieker antenna on it. I'm going to go 1 mile, then I'm going to go 2 miles, then 3 miles, and I'm going to see how it receives with the high shrieker antenna. Then I'm going to come home. I'm going to switch them out. I'm going to take the high shrieker off. I'm going to put the factory Radio Shack antenna on it, and I'm going to go out again 1 mile, 2 miles, and 3 miles, and I'll see which one receives better. I'm having a hard time finding. I like to go Radio Shack to Radio Shack. I try to go the same model, so I usually try to have two. I like to have two of the same CB. Well, that 226, I haven't had very good luck. I bought one, it didn't work. The guy, it didn't receive worth a damn. So I told the guy, I said, hey, you listed that on eBay as working, and it doesn't receive. So he said, just throw the thing away, and I'll refund you the money. So I bought another one. Same thing, didn't receive. I bought another one. That one transmitted, and it received. It worked out good. That one worked great. But like I say, I want two of them. I want to be able to go walkie-talkie to walkie-talkie to see how they receive. So I bought, I think I bought 7 of them. I know I bought 7 of them. And out of 7 of them, I only have 1 that works. A lot of these old things didn't hold up. So I found one that receives pretty good, and I left that one at home, and I took the only one that I had that would transmit out the 1 mile, 2 miles, and 3 miles. And hopefully that'll receive good enough that we can tell which antenna is the best. So we're going to do, like I say, the President Randy. I'm probably going to take 6 walkie-talkies out. I'll go out tonight when it's a little quieter on the conditions. I'll go out tonight and when it's a little quieter, and I'll take 6 radios. I'll take the President Randy. I like a 217. That's one of my favorites. I like a Cobra HH50, another one of my favorites. I've got a new one, and I can buy them cheap, and they kind of like a tank. They always seem to work good. A Radio Shack TRC 222, and that seems to work pretty well. So I'll take that. Now, the 216 was always the king. Out of all the old Radio Shacks, the 216 was the absolute best radio for years. They would show a guy on the box on a mountaintop all dressed in warm clothing. He'd be talking to a guy on another mountaintop. Well, all the Radio Shack antennas, all the Radio Shack CBs, all through the 80s, all the way up till, I don't know, 1999 or 2000, they all put out 2.5 watts dead key. They all did the same. You had different features, different looks. Some had chrome, some had this, some had a different display, some had a different strap or different size, but they all pretty much had the same technology, and they all did 2.5 watts dead key, all but the 216. The Radio Shack 216, that's the one they show the guy talking mountaintop to mountaintop, that could put out 4 watts. And I've tested those. Those do put out 4 watts. That's an incredible, incredible CB. But you paid for it. That was $159. I can remember when I was a younger man. When I wore a younger man's clothing, we used to go down to Tennessee. And I had some cousins down there. And their family was able to afford a 216. And we'd go, he lived on the side of a mountain, my cousin. And all the kids would go out, and we'd be playing on up and down the mountain and doing all kinds of things. And the parents wanted us to check in every hour. So every hour, pretty much on the hour, we'd call the parents' base station with that 216. We could go for miles. We could always catch them. We had a couple other cheap CB walkie-talkies from Radio Shack. And we would kind of play hide and seek, trying to use the walkie-talkies to find each other. We had a ball. But that 216 always impressed me. To this day, that impressed me. So my cousin lived up on the side of a mountain. If you looked way off across this valley, there was another small mountain. And he had a schoolmate that lived on that one. And that schoolmate had a TRC 216. I never could afford it. I could never afford one, but these guys had one. So I always wanted one when I got older. Anyhow, mountaintop to mountaintop, we could talk to his schoolmate. It was like he was next door. It was incredible. Really talked well. So that 216, that's kind of known as the king of the Radio Shack CBs as far as range and features and all the stuff. It's an incredible radio. So we're gonna try that one out with a few of the 2.5 watt radios, and we'll see what happens. And we'll see if we can figure out, is it the old Radio Shack's great antennas, or is it the new technology and the new radios? What's better? I don't know. We're going to find out tonight. All right, I found out some things on the antennas, so let me show you some things and make some observations. All right. So again, I watched this Max Public Land Hunting Outdoors. He did a video on a 236. This is a Radio Shack 236. He only found that radio put out 1.75 watts dead key. Dead keyed 1.75. That's nothing. I wasn't expecting much. Well, he went out 2 miles. It sounded so crystal clear. Sounded like he was talking on a telephone. He was given his base station, I think it was S7. You can go to his channel and see how he did. But I think that was the clearest. He's tested, I don't know, dozens and dozens of these radios. And I think that 236 was the clearest radio he's ever tested. It was very low on the power, but wow, it sounded like he was talking on a cell phone. I mean, honest to God, he sounded like he was talking in the same room. It was incredibly clear. Out of all the radios he's ever done, I think that radio was the clearest. So I was just looking. I pulled that one out just to see, and that antenna is the old-fashioned Radio Shack antenna that they're so good. Now this has got a big thick end on it. It's a black end, but it's got a big. That's a 48-inch antenna. Well, I like the 48-inch antennas. Now here is a 217. The 217 is one of my favorite radios. It's very difficult to get batteries in them. They won't take. It's a very tight battery compartment. I figured out a workaround, and I'll show you that when I do the review on the 217. I'll show you the workaround I have to get rechargeable batteries in it. But it took some finagling to do that. Anyhow, that also has the 48-inch antenna. The only difference between that is this is a nice chrome one. It's a little more expensive. The 217 was kind of a real fancy radio for them. So it had a chrome coil, and the end, it still has that big knob at the end, but now it's chrome. Now the 221, that does a nice job, and the 221, you can see the coil's at a little bit of a different height. And the end is a little different on the 221. Don't ask me why. But again, it's almost 48 inches. Now, I noticed over the last few years, well, I'll get to that. So here's the 226. Now, the 226 is actually a 41-inch tall antenna. So the 226 is 7 inches shorter than the other antennas. That's all right. It seems to work out. I have tested the 226, and the 226 does just as good as the 217, the 222, and so forth. So those have all done well. And here's my Cobra, when I always put the HYS antenna on it. And here's the President Randy. And again, I put that 51-inch telescoping antenna. So here are those. Now, over the years, I take out my 216 because that's always my best radio. The 216 is a 4-watt radio. It has that tall antenna. I always feel the 216 is probably the king of the radios, so I kind of compare everything to it. Well, over the years, I have learned the 216 gets its butt kicked every time I go out. It's always close. It's always close, but it's a little less. If one radio will say the 217. If I take my 217 out and I get, say, a signal strength of 3, and I take the 216 out, I only get a signal strength of 2. So all my radios get better than this 216. I'm very surprised because the 216 should be really, really good. Well, I started looking as I'm looking here, so I'm going to follow. This is the 216. 216, here's the antenna. Going to follow that up. Coil's about the same position as all the other ones. Okay, we'll follow it up. Hey, the 216 is stopped. The 216 is only 41 inches tall. What the heck? So maybe that's why the 216 loses a lot of battles. It's 7 inches shorter than the other ones. So I thought that was funny. Well, when I was trying to buy my 216, as I said, the 216 seems to be the best radio you can get from the old Radio Shacks. Well, I always say that, but I hate to tell you this, they didn't hold up well over the years. I bought 27 of them. And I only buy a radio on eBay that says tested and working. So guys will have it and they'll say, oh, tested and working. And I'll say, oh, great. So I'll buy it. And they'll say tested and working. And when I get it, it doesn't work. So I have to contact the seller and I say, hey, listen, that doesn't transmit, or the display is burned out, or the battery compartment's completely corroded out and you can't even put batteries in it. So they always say, oh, just keep it and I'll refund you the money. So I literally, out of 27, I have 3 that work. So if you want a 216, good luck getting one that works, because it's almost impossible. Most of them, the displays have burned out. The displays have burned out long ago, or something has burned out. Maybe all that, like I say, the 216 puts out 4 watts. Maybe that high wattage burned them out. Anyhow, what I did is I started looking at all those old radios I have, and I noticed here's a 216, this is a 216, and this is a 216. We'll follow the 2 antennas up. All right, the coils are both at the same spot. Now, this one is 41 inches. This one's 48. So it has to be maybe different years. I don't know. Maybe different manufacturers. I don't know. But some of the 216 radios had a 48-inch antenna, and some had a 41. So I kind of started looking. All the ones that don't work, they had the 48-inch antenna. And like the 3 that I got that did work, they had the 41-inch antenna. I don't know if that means anything. Again, it could be manufacturers, it could be different years. But I noticed, so now I'm learning 41 inches versus 48. Maybe this is why the 216 does not perform as well, because this is a 4-watt radio. These are 2.5 watt radios, and I've tested them. They're right on the money. Some are 2.6, some are 2.5, but this is a 4-watt radio. Those are 2.5. The 2.5 watt radios actually get better. Can 7 inches in antenna length make that much of a difference? I don't know. So tonight when I go out, I'm gonna bring the Radio Shack with the 41-inch antenna, and I'm going to compare it. And this is going to be a 4-watt to a 2.5 watt, and I'm going to compare them all, and we'll see. And I'm also taking this 226, and like I say, I'm going to take 2 different antennas for it. I'm going to take the 51-inch antenna and the factory antenna, and we'll try them both. And I'm also going to take the President Randy, and I'm going to try I'm going to put the Radio Shack antenna. I'm going to put the Radio Shack antenna on the President Randy, so that way I can go Radio Shack versus the HYS antenna, and we'll try to figure out and see which one is better. But most of the old CBs were 48 inches, and now I'm learning the absolute top of the king. The top of the line one was 41. Now, as we were talking about that too, I told you this 226, this Radio Shack 226, actually performs as good as all the 2.5 watts, and I think it outperformed the 216. So the 216 and the 226, right here, those are the 2 antennas. They're both exactly the same height, maybe a quarter of an inch difference, if that. But the 226 seems to be better than the 226 seems to be better than the 216, and the 216 was the best radio they had. So I'm going to take them all out tonight, and we'll see how they do. So stick around, and I'll show you the results. Testing the Radio Shack 222. Radio Shack 222, 4 miles away. 4 miles away. It is about 10:50, I believe. Radio Shack 222, 4 miles. Testing the Radio Shack 216, Radio Shack 216, 4 miles away. Radio Shack 216, 4 miles from the base station. Radio Shack 216. I'm testing the Radio Shack 222. I'm doing it a second time because I forgot the microphone is at the bottom on this radio. I completely forgot the microphone's on the bottom. So this is the second test of the Radio Shack TRC 222 from 4 miles away. Testing the Radio Shack with a TRC 217. Radio Shack 217, 4 miles away. Test, 1, 2, 3. Test 1, test, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Radio Shack 217, 4 miles away. Testing the Cobra HH50. Testing the Cobra HH50, 4 miles away. 51-inch HYS telescoping antenna. Cobra HH50, 4 miles away. Test, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Wow. Scans on. Testing the President Randy. President Randy, we've got the HYS antenna on, 4 miles from the base station. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Test, test, test. Now this is the President Randy with the HYS telescoping 51-inch antenna. Test, test, test. This is the President Randy. President Randy, 4 miles out. Now we've got the Radio Shack telescoping antenna. This is the Radio Shack telescoping antenna on the President Randy. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Test, test, test. President Randy telescoping Radio Shack antenna. This is the Radio Shack 226. Radio Shack 226. We've got the HYS telescoping 51-inch HYS antenna, 4 miles from the base. Test, 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 test. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. Radio Shack 226 using the high shrieker, the HYS 51-inch telescoping antenna. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I can tell right away the receive is much better. All right, we're testing the Radio Shack 226. Radio Shack 226. We've got the factory Radio Shack telescoping antenna. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Test, test, test. Radio Shack 226. The factory telescoping antenna, 4 miles out. 4 miles out. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. Radio Shack 226. Factory telescoping antenna.
Truck 8 on scene. Truck 8 on scene. Testing the Radio Shack 222. Radio Shack 222, 4 miles away. 4 miles away. It is about 10:50, I believe. Radio Shack 222, 4 miles. Testing the Radio Shack 216. Radio Shack 216, 4 miles away. Radio Shack 216, 4 miles from the base station. Radio Shack 216. I'm testing the Radio Shack 222. I'm doing it a second time because I forgot the microphone is at the bottom on this radio. I completely forgot the microphone's on the bottom. So this is the second test of the Radio Shack TRC 222 from 4 miles away. Testing the Radio Shack for the TRC 217. Radio Shack 217. 4 miles away. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Test 1. Test, 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 test. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Radio Shack 217. 4 miles away. Testing the Cobra HH50. Testing the Cobra HH50. 4 miles away. 51-inch HYS telescoping antenna. Cobra HH50, 4 miles away. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Testing the President Randy. President Randy, we've got the HYS antenna on, 4 miles from the base station. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Test, test, test. Now this is the President Randy with the HYS telescoping 51-inch antenna. Test, test, test. This is the President Randy. President Randy, 4 miles out. Now we've got the Radio Shack telescoping antenna. This is the Radio Shack telescoping antenna on the President Randy. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Test, test, test. President Randy, telescoping Radio Shack antenna. This is the Radio Shack 226. Radio Shack 226. We've got the HYS telescoping 51-inch HYS antenna, 4 miles from the base. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, test, test, test. Radio Shack 226, using the high shrieker, the HYS 51-inch telescoping antenna. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Alright, we're testing the Radio Shack 226. Radio Shack 226. We've got the factory Radio Shack telescoping antenna. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Test, test, test. Radio Shack 226. The factory telescoping antenna. 4 miles out. 4 miles out. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test. Radio Shack 226. Factory telescoping antenna.
Okay, we're at the 1 mile mark. We've got the TRC 226. 1 mile away, we're talking to the TRC 226 with the factory antenna. I've got the high shrieker antenna. See what we do. High power. This is the TRC 226. We're trying to talk to the TRC 226 back at the base station with the factory TRC telescoping antenna. I'm using the high shrieker antenna right now. Test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Alright, we're at the 1 mile location. We've got the TRC 226. TRC 226, we're using the factory telescoping antenna. We're trying to reach the TRC 226 that's sitting at home that has a factory TRC telescoping antenna. Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1.
Back at the base station with the factory TRC telescoping antenna. I'm using the high shrieker antenna right now. Test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Alright, we're at the 1 mile location. We've got the TRC 226. TRC 226, we're using the factory telescoping antenna. We're trying to reach the TRC 226 that's sitting at home that has a factory TRC telescoping antenna. Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Truck 8 leaving the scene, leaving the 1 mile scene.
Okay, we're at the 1 mile scene again. I went home, I switched out the antennas on the one that's at home, and now we're going to do the test again and see if it makes any difference. This is the TRC 226. We are 1 mile from the house. We're trying to talk to the other TRC 226. The other 226 has the high shrieker antenna. This antenna is the factory telescoping Radio Shack antenna. So test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. TRC 226, 1 mile location, high power, factory telescoping Radio Shack antenna, trying to talk to the other 226, which is back at the base, and the one back at the base has the high shrieker antenna. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. All right. All right, we've got the high shrieker antenna. This is the TRC 226. We're 1 mile from the house. We've got the high shrieker antenna on it, high power. We're trying to talk to the other 226 at the house that has the high shrieker. So we're basically going high shrieker to high shrieker at this point. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Test, 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 test. All right, we'll see if that works.
Leaving the house. 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven leaving the house. Truck 8, 1 mile scene. 7:15. Truck 8, on scene, 1 mile. This is the TRC 226. We are 1 mile from the house. We're trying to talk to the other TRC 226. The other 226 has the high shrieker antenna. This antenna is the factory telescoping Radio Shack antenna. So test. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. TRC 226, 1 mile location, high power, factory telescoping Radio Shack antenna, trying to talk to the other 226, which is back at the base, and the other one back at the base has the high shrieker antenna. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. All right, we've got the high shrieker antenna. This is the TRC 226. We're 1 mile from the house. We've got the high shrieker antenna on it, high power. We're trying to talk to the other 226 at the house that has the high shrieker. So we're basically going high shrieker to high shrieker at this point. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Test, 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 test. Leaving the 1 mile scene. Truck 8, 1. Truck 8 leaving the 1 mile scene.
Okay, we're at the 2 mile location. 2 mile location. This is the 226 with the factory 226 telescoping antenna. We're on high power. We're at the 2 mile location. 2 mile location. We're trying to talk to the Radio Shack 226 that's at my house, which has the factory telescoping antenna on it. This is the TRC 226. We're 2 miles from my house. 2 miles from my house. We've got the TRC 226. We've got the high shrieker antenna. High shrieker antenna on it. We're on high power.
Truck 8, 724. We're at the 2 mile location. 2 mile location, truck 8. Leaving the 2 mile scene. Truck 8, leaving the 2 mile scene.
Okay, we're at the 3 mile location. 3 mile location. This is the TRC 226. TRC 226, high power. We've got the factory telescoping antenna, factory telescoping TNC antenna. 3 mile location. We're trying to talk to the other TRC 226, which is at my house, which has the factory telescoping TNC antenna. So This is my 1 mile location that I do. I'm just showing Massachusetts is all woods. It's heavily thick, heavy woods all around. So everything here is built on the edge of a forest, and I'm kind of in the middle of the forest. So this is my 1 mile location. So it's not ideal to try to get a signal to go through all these trees, but we'll see what happens. This is my 2 mile location. I am out in the woods. All right, that's my pickup. That's the forest in my town across the way there, and there's just nobody in the forest. That's a street that goes by. You can stand out on that street for 20 minutes and nobody will drive by. This little street here, nobody will drive by for an hour probably. So I'm out in the middle of my woods, but it's really a jungle right now. I don't know how good everything will go, but hopefully everything will transmit the 2 and 3 miles. 3 mile location. Not a lot of trees out here, but it's a jungle. 3 miles is going that way towards my house, and you have to go through 3 miles of forest to get to my house. I'm smack dab in the middle of the forest. Okay, I'm back. So I've gone out and done the test. I took out six of these radios. I just grabbed 6 of them. It didn't really matter. I'm gonna I've got this 216 with the tall antenna. Now here's a 221, and the antenna is exactly the 48-inch. So I have a 216 with the 48-inch antenna. I got to see if I can get that to work. I've been fooling around trying to get these to work. I think I can get it to work, and if I can, I'll compare the 41-inch antenna versus the 48-inch antenna. That'll be another test for another day. But anyhow, I took these radios out, and I'm comparing the 226 with both antennas. And I went back to my base station, and my base station heard both exactly the same. Didn't make any difference whether it be the 51-inch tall Hystrika antenna or the 41-inch Radio Shack antenna. So they both did just as fine. Now I did that on the 226. I also did that on the President Randy. So I used the President Randy with the 51-inch telescoping Hystrika antenna, and I used the same President Randy with the Radio Shack 41-inch telescoping antenna. They both did exactly the same. You saw the video. I can't tell the difference. The only radio out of all the radios I took, the 217, that sounded crystal clear. The 222, Radio Shack TRC 222, that sounded crystal clear. Both of those radios really sounded nice. My Cobra, which is one of my favorite radios, it just has the clearest transmission and the clearest receive out of all my radios. The Cobra did fantastic. They all did good. They all did pretty good. Like I showed you, some are 41 inches, some are 48, some are 46. I think a couple of these are 46. Anyhow, they all did good except my 216. The TRC 216 with the 41-inch antenna. So the one with the 41-inch antenna was a little less. If you notice in the video, they all gave me a signal strength of S7, which is pretty good. I mean, I was 4 miles away. I went out on a nice, clear, calm night, about 10 o'clock at night, maybe 10:30 at night, and yeah, I guess it was 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I went out 4 miles. I took all those radios, and I took all those radios, and the TRC 216 gave me signal strength 6 on my base station, and all the other radios gave me signal strength 7. So they're all pretty much the same. I got to look into that. So when I got home, I started looking into that Radio Shack. That Radio Shack had the most power out of all of them. That Radio Shack, I think, was like 3.9 watts. And all the other ones were like 3.3, 3.2. But that Radio Shack that did the least amount of range gave me 3.9 on it. I think my Cobra was 3.5 watts. So yeah, that Radio Shack really should have performed better. I can't believe, what is it, 48 versus 41. So I can't believe 7 inches would be that much of a difference. But you saw the video. The radio, and I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all fine. I'm not complaining. But you can see there's a full 1 pound of signal strength difference between the Radio Shack and all the other ones. But they all do the same. Whether you use the High Shrieker 51-inch tall antenna or the old Radio Shack 48-inch antennas, they all seem to do exactly the same on range. Now, I also showed you, I took out the 226, wherever it is. Huh, there it is. I took the 226 out and I put it on a table out back here. And like I say, I bought 7 of these 226 radios, and I only had one that transmitted really good, so I took the one that transmits out good, and I took that one out, and I have one that received. It didn't seem to receive great, but every time I tested it, it seemed to receive, so I figured I'd give it a shot. So I put that out back with the factory Radio Shack antenna, and I went out 1 mile, 2 miles, and 3 miles, and I tried both antennas, the High Shrieker antenna and the Radio Shack antenna, just talking back to this one, to the 226 with the factory antenna. And then I came home and I switched. So I took the factory antenna off of here and I put the High Shrieker on, and then I went out and I did 1 mile, 2 miles, and 3 miles again. And when I got home, I was very surprised. I couldn't hear anything at the 2 mile mark. I don't know if that cheap, lousy radio, like I say, I got some eBay garbage. So maybe that radio wasn't very good. But I did hear them at 3 miles. So at 3 miles on the video, you'll see, you saw it. At 3 miles, you could hear High Shrieker antenna to High Shrieker antenna. You could just barely hear it at 3 miles from the 226, Radio Shack 226, with the High Shrieker antenna, talking to the Radio Shack 226 with the High Shrieker antenna. That made it 3 miles. But the factory Radio Shack 226 41-inch antenna couldn't make the 3 miles. So most of them are pretty much almost the same. But if you have to give it to one or the other, the High Shrieker definitely was more of a performance antenna. So the High Shrieker did make the 3 miles for the 226. Most of my testing, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. But as far as Radio Shack handheld to handheld, the High Shrieker to the High Shrieker worked better than the Radio Shack to the Radio Shack. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So if anybody's ever wondering about antennas, I do have one of these Abree tactical antenna. It folds up. I guess after you fold it 2 or 3 times, it breaks. I have a couple of different models of those. Another day, I'm going to go out and test these big tall antennas and the High Shrieker antenna with that Abree or whatever the heck they call it. It's supposed to be a military one. I'll do that test someday. But this test taught me a lot. I hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate you watching. I really do. We'll see you on the next video.